As your attorney, I advise you to
Take a seat either in a chair or cross-legged on a cushion.
Listen, I come from a culture that just wants me to drink more Starbucks and watch more music videos. And no one's oppressing me, but I want to get into this Islam business. Let's see what's here. And he can get led down the path to extremism.
Led down the path, right? By whom?
By the fucking text.
Who are we to say that the proud denizens of an ancient culture are wrong to force their wives and daughters to live in cloth bags? And who are we to say even that they're wrong to beat them with lengths of steel cable or throw battery acid in their faces if they decline the privilege of being smothered in this way?
I just released a book with a Muslim co-author, a person who has paid his dues against bigotry far more than you have, I would imagine. He's spent 4 years. He's spent 4 years in an Egyptian
gentlemen.
and yet you are responding to me like a
living in the
bigot.
United States. Sam, I read, is that in the Quran?
It's in the Hadith.
It's not in the Quran. You know it's not in the Quran, Sam. And not all Muslims follow Hadith. You know that. I've had gay imams, openly gay imams.
Let him
interrupt me.
Sam, finish your thought, and then Dean, you can respond.
Dean, you're going to get a chance to talk.
People have been murdered over cartoons. End of moral analysis. Nothing Hitchens does is ever boring.
There is, I'm happy to say, a religion of peace in this world. But it's not Islam. The crazier you get as a Jain, the less we have to worry about you. They are paralyzed by their pacifism. The only problem with Islamic fundamentalism are the fundamentals of Islam. We have to defeat religion.
Don't understand what a dangerous imbecile I think Trump is. I really think he is a child in a man's body. He is a malignantly selfish, ignorant, and petty person.
I think many people will feel, what is the fucking point of having more Muslims in your society? Do you realize how talented she is? Do you realize that when a person starts out as an uneducated Somali girl who doesn't speak a word of Dutch, and in a few short years gets a degree in political science and becomes a member of parliament, and who speaks half a dozen languages at that point, you realize that there are other things she can do in life if she just wants to get ahead and make money beyond just pissing off a mob of religious maniacs, and then having to suffer not only their threats, but just the condescending stupidity of critics who don't have a fraction of the courage she has, who haven't suffered any of the abuse she has, who haven't taken any of the risks she has, but who then decide that it is probably a good idea to make her situation even more dangerous by attacking her as a bigot. Okay, I mean, you want to talk about opportunism? The opportunism is on the side of the Islamist assholes at the Council of American Islamic Relations, CARE, who try to get Ayan disinvited from speaking at universities and pretend that she, one of the most persecuted public intellectuals in living memory, is the one infringing on people's civil rights.
And of course we do. No liberal doesn't want to as bad.
But Islam at this moment is the motherlode of bad ideas.
Jeez.
Okay, the pause you hear from me is I'm trying to figure out how to proceed here. You know who I'd like to fuck? I'd like to fuck Nicki Minaj. I'd like to fuck Nicki Minaj too. Like, go get her. And you can drop acid, you can meditate. Islam has to be defeated. I'll say it now. Islam has to be defeated. Wait.
Natural has a certain meaning.
Bullshit.
I would say rape is evolutionary.
How's this for an answer? Almost certainly not. What's wrong with that answer?
Why can't we eat babies? What's wrong with eating babies? If we've got extra babies around that nobody wants, why can't we eat them, right? It's hard to be an intelligent and active and fit vegetarian. But again, the fact that Trump University exists and then the fact that he handled it the way he did tells me everything I need to know about him. Everything. Literally everything, Scott. Yeah, I'm talking about scientific breakthroughs. I'm talking about new businesses and museums and films, cures for diseases, new methods of purifying water. The good stuff. The good stuff beyond beating your wife or forcing her to live in a bag, or killing victims of rape, or performing clitorectomies on girls. The other good stuff. Go into Gaza and kill everyone.
I read your original pieces, and then I read your follow-ups, and I thought every time
Well, the follow-up is more reasonable and it puts everything in perspective.
Well, the follow-up is, I'm putting training wheels on it in most cases and taking people's false assumptions out of their heads. And so I'm doing damage control in a follow-up, but none of my views have changed in these follow-ups, and the actual view is clearly stated in the original. It's just people have, people have a hard time reading, but whereas if someone gives you 100 micrograms of LSD, there's absolutely no question that something's going to happen. Just boredom is not in the cards. Someone, for instance, who could perpetrate a fraud like Trump University and not want to kill himself out of shame. And that he's a sexual predator, not merely married to one. And yes, that he is very likely also a bigot. And that he's above all a bully and a con man. An obvious con man. The most obvious con man I have ever seen in public life. None of this is an example of an ad hominem fallacy. I'm sure she's a perfectly nice person, and I would be very nice talking to her, but I have a feeling now of more or less total hopelessness talking to someone as polarized on these issues as I view her to be. Well, I hate to break it to you here. They're fucking evil. But Christianity is a cult of human sacrifice. Here's a bet. I could summarize your view of me in a way that you would agree with. You couldn't return the favor. You want to take that bet? I'm absolutely sure I can articulate how you view your side of the conversation in a way that you would sign off on. I have absolutely no faith you could do the same for me.
What are the chances that we're all going to go to hell for eternity because we haven't recognized the Quran to be the perfect word of the creator of the universe? Please know that this is exactly how Christianity appears to someone who's not been indoctrinated by it. Yes, women are worth less than men. Yes, that is a literal. Yes, you can take sex slaves. That is.
I don't fucking look like Ben Stiller.
Yes, you.
How do you treat your sex slaves?
Well,
not you.
Yeah.
But how was one?
Taking sex. I mean, taking sex slaves. So you can. It's not adultery if you're having sex with sex slaves.
This is the Extreme Cinema Channel, motherfuckers.
I don't know that a cop didn't just get a call that some guy who looks like Ben Stiller committed an armed robbery. There is never a moment where I find him persuasive. When I look at him, I see a man. I mean, it's really uncanny. It's like I see a man without any inner life. I see the most superficial person on earth. It's a guy who's been totally hollowed out by greed and self-regard and just delusion. I mean, the way he talks about himself is so. It's like, I mean, if I caught some sort of brain virus and I started talking about myself the way Trump talks about himself, I would throw myself out a fucking window. I mean, it's like that barely overstates it. It's like, I mean, you remember that scene in the end of The Exorcist where the priest finally, he's driving out the devil from Linda Blair and the devil comes into him and then he just hurls himself out the window to end all the madness? Well, it would be like that, right? The fact that you think you're entering this conversation in a way that is intellectually honest and open to having your views challenged and responsive to evidence that you didn't have a moment ago. I mean, it's as pure an act of self-deception as I've witnessed in a long time. You are so defensive. There is nothing I could say to you about the reality of publishing or about my experience as an author or about the opportunity cost or the security cost or anything else that only I in this conversation am in a position to talk about. There's nothing I can say to you that modified your view of my opportunism and get-rich-quickery even slightly. And now we're proceeding on to much more difficult ground, right? Now we're talking about Ayan, and we're going to talk about Islam and apostasy. And I mean, this is not how you have a conversation with another human being. You're no one worth talking to. black people are apes.